How you doing? I'm Callan and this is Slapped Ham. The following alleged time travelers claim they've visited parallel universes. But just quickly before we get into it, remember to hit that subscribe button for more mysterious content just like this.
A woman named Miriam Golding claims that an ordinary elevator ride in 1934 took her into another dimension. Golding was riding with her fiancé in an elevator inside a Chicago mall when she claims that she got off on the wrong floor and stumbled into a mysterious train station. People at the train station seemed as though they couldn't hear or see Miriam. What's more, the season had shifted from fall to summer in an instant. The only person who could see Miriam was a young boy who told her that he also suddenly found himself inside the mysterious train station after entering a locker room at his school in Lincoln, Nebraska. Miriam finally returned back to her life as she knew it after a period of feeling as though she was hovering in darkness. Her fiancé was relieved when she returned home hours later. He had been searching for her after becoming separated at the mall. Oddly, several people around town had spotted Miriam, walking through the town in company of a young boy during the hours that she was missing. Could there be a darker version of your hometown out there in another dimension? Carol Chase McElhaney claims that she slipped through dimensions during an ordinary drive in California and discovered an alternative version of her hometown she knew so well. McElhaney happened to be driving from Paris to San Bernardino in 2006 when she decided to make a stop in her hometown of Riverside. However, all wasn't right as she made her way down what she thought was a familiar route. McElhaney was unable to locate the childhood home she knew so well. What's more, her family members were nowhere to be found. The homes on the street where she lived were different. Even the town cemetery was nothing more than a plot full of weeds. However, some landmarks throughout the town were just as she remembered them. McElhaney couldn't help but sense a dark, eerie vibe as she drove around and encountered the residents of this alternative version of Riverside. That's when she decided to leave. Happily, Riverside had returned back to its normal state when she visited years later. Carol Chase McElhaney believes that she somehow entered an alternate dimension. A man named Andrew Basiago came forward in 2014 and claimed that he was transported through other dimensions as part of a secret project of the United States government called Project Pegasus. Basiago claims that he worked on a teleportation and time travel project from the age of 7 until the age of 12. He claims that children were chosen for the project because of their adaptability. He also claims that he travelled through time on 8 separate occasions as part of the project. Among these places Basiago claims to have travelled to is Ford's Theatre on the night of President Abraham Lincoln's assassination. He claims to have witnessed the assassination in person multiple times. He even bumped into himself during 2 of the visits. This photo here is alleged evidence that Basiago travelled back in time to 1863 to see the Gettysburg Address. He said he witnessed Abraham Lincoln's famous speech firsthand. In 2016, Basiago ran for US presidency as an independent. He cited his time travel experience as one of his strongest qualifications, noting he had a key insight into the future of the country. However, strangely, he couldn't say whether he'd win or not. Andrew Basiago revealed that technology that was developed by Nikola Tesla served as the blueprint for the time travel technology used by the United States government. He said that each visit was like being sent to a slightly different alternative reality that exists on an adjacent timeline. Did a highly regarded neurosurgeon enter an alternate version of reality while in a coma? Dr. Eben Alexander has chatted with Oprah and published a best-selling book about the near-death experience he had as a result of bacterial meningoencephalitis in 2008. He claims he was able to enter an alternate space where he was comforted by celestial beings during his time of unconsciousness. Alexander claims that consciousness is not harbored within the brain, and that death is a transition to another realm. Since his otherworldly experience, Alexander has toured the world giving lectures to universities, churches, and schools. However, in 2013, Esquire magazine did an investigation into the claims, and found that Alexander was part of numerous malpractice lawsuits and had been terminated from multiple practices. He was suspected of altering medical documents to cover up medical errors. It was also discovered that Alexander was experiencing hallucinations prior to being put into a medically induced coma during his battle with bacterial meningoencephalitis. Many skeptics believe that his journey into an alternate dimension was nothing more than a feverish hallucination brought on from his ailments. A man landed in Tokyo in 1954 with a very unusual story. The mysterious man arrived at Tokyo International Airport and presented a passport that had been stamped with a place of origin called to red. You don't have to study a map of the world for very long before realizing no place called to red actually exists. The mysterious man's passport backed up his story. It appeared to be legitimate. What's more, it was filled with customs and visa stamps that were consistent with his story of visiting Japan on business quite frequently. He also possessed a checkbook full of checks from a bank that nobody had ever heard of before. Immigration officials decided that the man should be sent to a hotel near the airport until more information could be gathered. 2 officials were stationed outside the door of his hotel room for the night. However, the man was gone by morning. He had simply vanished from a ledge-free room that was 15 stories above a busy Tokyo street. All attempts to locate the man again came up short. Had he simply slipped back into whatever parallel version of reality he had come from? What if you woke up one morning and discovered that your job, relationships, and many of the other things you knew weren't quite the same? This happened to Lorena Garcia one strange day in 2008. Garcia woke up on what she thought was just another ordinary day and headed to work. However, the department that she had worked in for 20 years wasn't there when she arrived at her office. She then returned home to discover that her estranged partner was there. What's more, he was completely unaware of the fact that the couple had actually been separated for 6 months. That's when things got even weirder. The man she had been seeing for several months had all but vanished into thin air. Garcia was unable to locate him with the help of a private investigator. Unlike most people who allege that they slip into parallel universes, Garcia hasn't been able to slip back out. The woman is stuck living in a dimension that she claims isn't her own to this day. The year was 1986 when a man named Pedro Ramirez claims he was teleported to another dimension while driving in his car outside of Seville, Spain. Ramirez was headed to a town called Alcalá de Guadalajara when he suddenly realized that the once familiar route had suddenly turned very unfamiliar. He claims that he came around a curve and suddenly found himself on a 6-lane highway he had never seen before. Unknown structures and strange terrain unfolded all around him. He heard voices in the distance. All of the cars that he shared this new and strange highway with passed at intervals of precisely 8 minutes. These cars had narrow rectangles where traditional license plates would normally be. Ramirez claims that he drove on this bizarre highway for about an hour before turning off to the left. He was eventually able to get to his destination safely. However, he was never able to explain how he got there or how he ended up on a highway that didn't resemble anything in our world. 4 college girls claim that they were zapped into another dimension while driving through Gadianton Canyon in May of 1972. The event supposedly happened just as the girls came upon an intersection after crossing into Nevada from Utah. They watched as the black pavement on the road in front of them suddenly turned into white cement. The confused girls assumed they had taken the wrong path and attempted to turn around. However, they encountered a terrain of pine trees and fields instead of a desert landscape once they did. The girls claim that they then stopped at a tavern on the side of the road to ask for directions. However, that move was thwarted by mysterious egg-shaped vehicles that began chasing them. The chase resulted in a wreck that left the car they were driving with busted tyres. The girls waited in the car until morning. They then hiked to Highway 56 and flagged down a state trooper. The mystery of what really happened was never solved. However, the girls believe that they somehow passed through a portal into a parallel version of our planet. A Swedish man named Håkan Nordqvist arrived home one day in August 2006 to discover that water had collected under the sink in his kitchen. That's when this ordinary problem turned into an extraordinary event. Nordqvist claims he was transported to another dimension when he reached for a pipe while trying to fix the leak. A wormhole located under the sink pulled him into the future and brought him to the year 2042. Nordqvist claims he was able to meet up with himself at 72 years old and have a chat. He thought that no one would ever believe him, so he took out his phone and filmed a short clip. This video here is what he captured. It allegedly shows Nordqvist in the year 2042 having a chat with himself in the future. They hug each other and even compare a unique arm tattoo. Skeptics noted that the tattoo on the older man is as fresh looking as Nordqvist's, claiming that it's probably a close relative or possibly even his father. Nordqvist said he had a really pleasant and unique experience and doesn't care whether people believe him or not. However, the whole story was eventually outed as a viral marketing campaign for insurance company They&amp. So sadly, this intriguing story is nothing but a hoax. Before we get to that number one spot and take a look at an entire family that may have slipped into an alternate reality, remember to hit that subscribe button and turn on channel notifications. That way you'll be completely up to date with all our latest videos. Frances Peterson was travelling home with her husband and 4 children in 1935 when the Iowa resident slipped into a strange version of our world. Peterson claims that her family decided to take a detour through a scenic valley area. It turns out that this quaint area operated very much like a place that time forgot. The Peterson family admired the lovely scenery and scenes of women in old-fashioned clothing as they drove along. They delighted in the way the residents of the area tended to their goats, collected firewood, and pulled water from wells. The Peterson family enjoyed their time visiting the area so much that they wanted to do it again in the future. Unfortunately, they could never quite find it. Nobody else seemed to know what they were talking about when they described the place to others who lived in the area. In fact, there was no record of any such place existing in the area at all. It was as though Frances Peterson and her family temporarily slipped into a place that doesn't exist in our version of reality.
If you love time travel stories, then you're going to love our other video, 10 cases of time travel that can't be explained. There's an embedded link right there. Go ahead and check it out. Slap that thumbs up button as well because it lets us know you're enjoying the content. And that's it for me. I'll see you all next time.